Honourable Steve Clark. Special guests, we have Amarjot Sandhu with us, the Parliamentary Assistant for the Minister of Infrastructure, and Prabmeet Sarkaria, the President of the Treasury Board, will be joining us shortly as well. Before we get started, I know many of you have already seen the expo, the icon on the left of your screen. There's some great information that helps businesses succeed in the expo. Of course, we have our one-on-one networking also on the left side of your screen. But we're happy that you're here at the main stage, and we're looking forward to a candid conversation with Minister Clark and our local representatives from Brampton West, Amarjot Sandhu, and Brampton South, Minister Sarkaria, about housing and municipal affairs. And let me formally introduce Minister Clark. He was first elected MPP for Leeds Grenville in 2010 and was re-elected in 2011 and 2014. In 2018, he was re-elected as MPP for the newly named riding of Leeds Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes. He gained attention across Canada back in 1982 as at the age of 22, just out of university, he was elected mayor of Brockville. He served 3 terms as mayor, and during his tenure was also president of AMO. Prior to his election as a Leeds Grenville MPP, Mr. Clark was chief administrative officer for the township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands. Mr. Clark knows municipal affairs. Minister Clark also served as opposition House leader in 2014-2015, deputy leader of the official opposition from 2015 to 2018, and deputy opposition House leader from 2012 to 14, and again 2017 to 2018. He's married to Deanna, and together they're proud parents of a blended family with 5 children and 5 grandchildren. Welcome, Minister Clark. We're so happy that you're here today.
Well, thanks, Todd, and just good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure for me to be here at the Board of Trade's meeting, and who better to accompany me than the local Brampton rock stars, my good friend Amarjot Sandhu. He's just such an inspiration as a young politician, just ear to the ground and full bore all the time. So I just love coming to Brampton and seeing him. And also Minister Sarkaria will be joining us soon. And I work with him obviously on the Treasury Board. I'm a member of Treasury Board, and he also has always rolled out the welcome mat for me when I've traveled to Brampton. So just want to thank everybody for being here today. Just looking forward, Todd, to answer anybody's questions. But I just really want to thank my colleagues Amarjot and Prabmeet for their leadership and their friendship.
Well, that's fantastic. We've got about half an hour with you today, Minister. And so I'm going to start right off on the housing side of your portfolio. Both availability and affordability is a major concern for our local business community. Of course, they're trying to attract talent, employees, and as well, they're feeling some pressure with respect to wage inflation, given the increase in housing prices. It's no doubt that you hear this across our province. What can your government do? What is your government doing on the housing affordability? And do you see any relief on the horizon?
Well, Todd, that's a great question. It's a question that comes up in pretty well every engagement that I have. So what our government did right from the get-go is my vision was to introduce more homes, more choice. This is Ontario's Housing Supply Action Plan, which really put a plan in place to build more affordable homes in our province to address the affordability issue. It really included a very broad range of measures that addressed a number of issues: the speed of development approvals, the mix of housing options, the costs for development, the supply of rental housing. And then I really wanted to drill down and look at some innovative ideas to increase housing supply. I think most people will agree that timelines to obtain projects approved have been shortened by our government through some of the things that we're in, more homes, more choice. And, after years of inaction by the previous government, we've made significant changes to boost housing supply despite the pandemic. So here's a couple of stats I'm going to give you, Todd. So more new homes started construction in 2020 So when the first pandemic year, in any year of the past decade. So those are real results that we've got. So we've also received about 11,500 units of rental housing that were completed in 2020, which has been the highest since 1992. And I don't care what statistic you use, Urban Nation, RBC, CMHC, they all admit that we're going back some 25 years and seeing some real changes. So in Brampton, we saw a 67% increase in housing starts in 2020 compared to 2019. In 2020, we also in Brampton saw 383 rental starts, which is really a significant increase. There was only 6 rental starts between 2016 and 2019. And this is the highest level of rental starts that we've seen in the last decade. So the policies have worked. There's much, much more to be done at the provincial level. We know that given the pandemic, housing is even more important. We just finished a federal election where every political party talked about housing to be important. But one of the things that we need to do to continue to make Ontario a great place to raise a family, a great place to start a business, we need our municipal partners. We need Ontario's 444 municipalities to use every one of the tools that we've given them, not just through More Homes, More Choice, our housing supply action plan, but we need them to look at those innovative ideas we've put forward. And we also need them to get their official plans done so that we can really continue the momentum that we saw with More Homes, More Choice.
Well, thank you for that. And those stats are very impressive in terms of both more homes and along your theme, more homes, more choice, but more rental as well, and specifically here in Brampton. Minister, what's really important in our community, being a traditional residential suburb, now a major city in Canada, is more jobs too. And your government has a proposal. You mentioned the federal election, but your government has a proposal in place to build Highway 413, and that will be an integral, crucial supply chain thoroughfare for our community, for the innovation corridor, for on Ontario. In your role as municipal affairs, we've seen the city of Brampton suggest something that would not include a highway there. We've seen the federal government introduce another environmental interest in another environmental assessment when, from the business community's perspective, it seems quite duplicative. And I wonder if you could just comment on, you've had some progress in terms of speeding up the building of housing. How can we still be respectful of the environment, but get crucial transportation infrastructure built faster in Ontario, particularly this GTA West Corridor Highway 413?
Yeah, no, and I know Minister Mulroney could probably talk to you all day about the work that she's done. I look at where we're at with the Greater Golden Horseshoe. The fact is, it's one of the fastest growing regions, not just in Ontario and Canada, but in North America. It's expected to attract 1 million new people every 5 years, reaching about 15 million people projected in 2051. So we all know that congestion costs the GTA $11 billion per year in lost productivity. It adds to our costs. It creates carbon emissions. Traffic demand that we've done as a government show that the GTA West transportation corridor would have about 300,000 vehicle trips per day by 2031. And we need infrastructure to help move people. We need infrastructure to help move goods across the region. And the existing infrastructure it's overwhelmed. So, I don't need to explain to anybody in this room what that means to workers in their businesses. Building infrastructure is critical to our long-term economic development plan. It creates jobs, especially as we continue to respond to COVID-19. And this is a transformational project, which means businesses and their workers are going to save time. But again, it's also, Minister Mulroney was here, she would talk about the fact that the GTA West project is already subject to a very robust provincial, individual environmental assessment, which I might add is one of the most strongest assessment processes on record. I know the federal government has had some comment on it. I'm not going to give any of my ministerial colleagues any advice on what they should do with their federal counterparts the day after a federal cabinet shuffle. But I know I'm going to be going to Ottawa on Monday to meet with my federal counterpart, and I've already both called him and texted him over the last 24 hours. We're going to continue to work with our federal colleagues. We're going to continue to go through the work that's been done by Minister Mulroney on the preliminary design process. And I want to remind people that if they have comments about this project, if they want to provide feedback, they can use the project website, or they can just simply call 1-877-522-6916 and give us their feedback and input.
Minister, thank you so much for that overview and for your advocacy with the senior level government for alignment on important infrastructure here in the Brampton area. I'm going to come back to you, Minister, on some questions, more questions about alignment between municipalities. And you mentioned, municipalities, the imperative for them to get their official plans done to assist you and your ministry to provide approvals to create more jobs. But I know that Amarjot Sandhu is with us, and I'm so happy that I'm speaking to all three of you together. Amarjot, you have been a champion for the Highway 413, the GTA West Corridor, from its inception, from your election when you were first elected. Now, and congratulations, sir, you are a parliamentary assistant for infrastructure. And my question to you is about how do you balance all of the important priorities that Brampton has? We've recently consulted in a confidence survey with our business community, and they rank healthcare infrastructure the highest, be it a third hospital or the completion of the work that and allocation you made in the last provincial budget for Peel Memorial to become a full second hospital, a cancer care center, and of course, there's two-way all-day go infrastructure, transit infrastructure, the highway infrastructure, and the LRT as well. There are the Main Street LRT extension and the Queen Street BRT. So many infrastructure priorities. How are you finding the new role, and how are you evaluating the many priorities here in Brampton?
Well, thank you, Todd. Thank you so much for that question. It's great to see my good friend, Minister Steve Clark, and obviously Minister Prabmeet Sarkaria as well. First of all, regarding your question for Highway 413, I believe that this is the much needed highway that will serve the GTA West community very well. And that is why, looking at the importance of this highway, I brought forward the motion calling on the government to immediately resume the environmental assessment for this GTA West corridor. And just 1 week after I tabled the motion, Minister of Transportation, then Minister Yafurek, came to Brampton and announced that we are going ahead, will be resuming the environmental assessment for this GTA West corridor. This is much needed highway, Todd. As I said that Brampton's population is significantly growing, and every new Ontarian that come to Ontario would like to settle in Brampton or GTA West area. 40 new immigrants every day, come to Brampton, and it highlights the importance of the infrastructure we need in Brampton. We are also investing in transit system. We are investing in two-way all-day go, Ontario LRT, but we also recognize and understand the importance of this highway. This will not only relieve the traffic congestion, this will significantly boost the provincial GDP. Also, it will save thousands of minutes every day. The time that families can spend with their loved ones, the time they're spending on the highways, it will attract more jobs. It will attract more businesses. If we want to, invite any business to invest in Ontario, they need first of all connectivity. So connectivity is very important. Transporting goods from one end to another. This highway is very important. Also, you asked about the priorities for Brampton. Healthcare is our number one priority. This was completely ignored by the previous government for last 15 years, and they were not able to deliver the much needed hospital that we delivered in last 3 years. And that is why Premier, we announced in March that we promised that we'll be building the second full-fledged hospital, the Peel Memorial Hospital, that will bring like 250 new beds, emergency center 24/7, and a new inpatient wing. So this is our commitment, and we have made significant progress on that commitment. We are working with the William Osler team so that we can, the plan and design is ready, and we'll be committed to put the shovels in the ground as soon as the design and the plan is ready. Also, the new medical school that is also much needed for Brampton. We have immediately given the grant to Ryerson $1 million to work plan so that we can have that medical school right here in Brampton. Our kids, especially in Brampton, this is the number one priority. A lot of people want their kids to go to medical school, so that is why we are committed to that as well. We have immediately given $1 million to plan that. Also, long-term care homes. Just to highlight, the previous government only announced 611 long-term care beds in 15 years, I guess. And we have announced already 600 beds in Brampton in last 3 years, including the new long-term care homes, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Long-Term Care Center, that will serve the South Asian, Sikh, Punjabi-speaking community very well. Because we need the cultural-based long-term care homes, especially, in Brampton. A lot of people, they have a language problem. The food, they won't get the food at some long-term care home. So this is much needed. So we're delivering on that promise as well. I know we're short on time, so we'll come back to other priorities after you ask Mr. Yeah.
Amarjot, thank you so much for being such a strong advocate for Brampton and its priorities. And you make some very good, I'm glad you brought it up, the fact that the medical school, which has a strong business case, will actually add a lot of value to Brampton. And, it's hard for many business owners to be productive in their day when family members are ill or need care. And so the investment that you made in long-term care facilities here as well is very much appreciated. We're fortunate here that we have an advocate in Amarjot Sandhu. We for the priorities that Brampton has. We have Minister Clark, who is having lots of success in his track record of helping things get done sooner. And it's unfortunate that Minister Sarkaria came off the phone, because I was going to ask him a question about money, because that's what it comes down to with respect to the needs of Brampton citizens and Brampton companies. But given that you're on the Treasury Board, Mr. Clark, Minister Clark, I'm going to give the question to you. As part of the Treasury Board, you have to look at both value for money, the importance of value for money, as well as the urgency of infrastructure needs. Now, we've talked already about the importance of alignment of municipalities, City of Brampton priorities with the province's priorities. And there's a bit of misalignment right now with respect to Heritage Heights and the 413. And when it comes to value for money, we still don't have a decision from the City of Brampton on the preferred route and format. One format involves a tunnel that costs 4 times more than the surface route. And I guess that's my question to you is, how can, in the full magnitude and volume of infrastructure needs in Brampton, let alone the infrastructure needs of other parts of Ontario, how likely is it for the province to voluntarily spend 4 times on an option, an LRT option that's 4 times more than what's necessary?
Well, I think you have to go back and Minister Sarkaria would talk about the challenges that we have, with a number of projects where you've got provincial policy, fiscal priorities, and you've got to have that value for money. If you ever decided to bring in, for example, the Auditor General, Bonnie Lysyk, she'll talk about the value for money audits that she does, and that she's done in the past. And as both a government minister and an opposition member, those value for money audits are very valuable to look at priorities being aligned with provincial. Ontario's 444 municipalities. I know not just as Ontario's Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, but some of the requests. Municipalities, all three levels of government, have some real challenges, especially coming out of COVID, to try to put a plan in place back to economic recovery. And we're going to have to roll up our sleeves and work together. But we always have to look at it in a lens of how we can work with our partners to come up with a realistic plan, one that we're able to accommodate as part of our provincial priorities. And I know that Minister Sarkaria brings a tremendously steady hand to the Treasury Board file. He's very, analytical in terms of reviewing the information in front of him. And he's also quite willing to challenge the asker, whether it be a line minister like myself or some of our partners, be it in this case municipalities, to be able to challenge on bringing that realistic, doable plan that makes sense for all of us. So he's been a great addition to Treasury Board. It's a pleasure to be at meetings with him, and I know that in the days ahead we'll be rolling up our sleeves with municipalities to try to tackle some of these problems. Things like in my ministry with housing, the Premier has talked about bringing our municipal partners to the table so that we can get a deliverable plan for our communities.
Fantastic, and thank you for your comment on that. And now a question back right into your wheelhouse, sir. Municipal reform. Shortly after election, a plan was in place to bring about more efficiencies in terms of governance, perhaps some consolidation. I know that when we speak to businesses here in Brampton, only a third of respondents to a recent survey indicated that Brampton was well served by its current two-tier regional government structure. I'm just wondering, it's no longer on the table for this term of government, but if reelected, will you revisit regional reform in parts of Ontario and here in Peel specifically?
Yeah, well, Todd, it's a good question. We're not contemplating a regional government review again at this time. What we would want for city councillors to be focused on is really completing their official plans. We need them to finish them on time, do everything they can to use the tools that we've provided them to increase housing supply in their municipality. We have created a fund that Brampton can access called the Audit and Accountability Fund, which can look at streamlining service delivery views, making themselves more efficient. And it goes back to that, previous question about value for money. It does allow them to do those type of audits that they can streamline their process and provide better outcomes for the taxpayer. But in terms of the actual review, we're not contemplating any further review at this time.
Okay, thank you. And I know we've got, I think, one or two more questions before a hard stop that you have, Minister. We appreciate your time and that of MPP Sandhu as well. There's been talk recently about councillor accountability, or in particular, councillor misconduct or incompetence. Are you taking seriously these reports that we're hearing, these examples here in Brampton and other parts of Ontario? And are you able, and are you considering some legislation that would allow the removal of councillors for misconduct or other behaviors?
Yeah, I want to be very clear to the board. Our government is not going to tolerate, we will not tolerate workplace harassment or discrimination of any kind. And what we did was we consulted, we had a 90-day consultation. I want to thank Ministers Dunlop and Ministers McKenna for doing the consultation. And they met with municipal councillors, heads of council, municipal associations, municipal staff on how can we strengthen local accountability frameworks. And this was extensive. So over that 90 days, they did 18 roundtables. They had over 2,650 submissions. And I'm going to share the results of the consultation soon, but I want to reassure everyone here that we take the standards of both behavior and local accountability very seriously. I'm proud of my collaborative relationships that I've been able to foster with municipalities and our partners, but I'm committed to making sure Ontario municipalities have the tools and have the support to foster respectful workplaces. This is something we take very seriously, and we're going to act on it.
Thank you, Minister. Our last question then, Minister, is on the importance of childcare from a business perspective. As we mentioned earlier in this conversation, workers, employees, business owners are most productive when they know that their family members are safe, be it their parents, grandparents, and the investments that you've made in long-term care. Childcare is an issue here in Brampton as well. Its availability, its cost, restrictions in zoning that don't allow it where it needs to be, close to or at workplace facilities. What can your government do and I believe that there's a proposal from the federal government on the table now. What is your intention there with respect to that proposal, or what other things are you doing to address the need for childcare and its impact on business productivity?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question. And I first of all, I want to say that you don't have a bigger champion, as you heard earlier with some of the projects that he's been able to deliver for the people of Brampton. But MPP Sandhu, Amarjot's done such a tremendous job, and he continues to ensure that the voices of your citizens, especially on issues like childcare, get directed to the government. I know Minister Lecce, again, I'm not going to tell my colleagues how to deal with their federal colleagues, but I know that Minister Lecce will be working with his new counterpart at the federal government. Childcare, again, during the federal election was front and center, all parties. It's important for us to ensure, as we move out of COVID and work on our recovery as a province, that we give businesses all the tools that they need to be successful. I'm hoping that Minister Lecce will make significant gains with the federal government, and we can continue our plan to open up opportunities in communities like Brampton. Minister Lecce is a very, very hardworking minister. I know he takes the childcare portfolio very seriously, and he's going to continue to work with our municipal partners on offering new options and new opportunities in communities like Brampton. So, and I'll make sure that I put a stake in the ground and let them know that this was a question that the Board of Trade wants some action on, and I'll amplify the very strong voice of MPP Sandhu.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you both. As we wrap up, I don't know if there are any final comments from Amarjot or Minister Clark. Minister Clark, we wish you well on your mission to Parliament Hill. Maybe you want to tell us what's on the agenda there. What are your top priorities?
Yeah, well, sure. Just before the federal election, we did an extensive study on our core housing need, and we found that we've been shortchanged by the federal government by about $490 million based on our core. We've had a number of our municipal partners in big cities, including Mayor Brown, who's been very supportive of our call to the federal government for our fair share. Ontario is pretty unique. We were the first province or territory in Canada that signed on to the National Housing Strategy. So our National Housing Strategy agreement with the federal government needs to be renewed. So we want to make sure that we get it renewed by the end of the year. We're going to be asking our municipal partners to support us in our call for more money. More dollars as part of the NHS means more dollars for affordable housing in communities like Brampton. So I'm hoping that that Minister Hussain, who is a good friend, and I work very collaboratively with him, will heed our concerns about the NHS, and getting our fair share. So that's a bit of a glimpse to my speech on Monday when I'm up in Ottawa.
Well, we wish you well with that. Any final comments, Amarjot?
Thank you, Todd. I want to thank you for your inspired leadership at the Brampton Board of Trade, and also Minister Clark for taking time to talk to the members of Brampton Board of Trade. As I have said earlier, that we have delivered so much for Brampton in the last 3 years, but the previous government was not able to deliver in the last 15 years. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done, and we'll continue to advocate for the issues that matter to Bramptonians. Mr. Clark has been a great advocate as well. Whenever we approach him for any issues that matter to Bramptonians, he always listen to that issues and always willing to take action on those issues. So thank you so much for having us, and we'll continue to work on the issues that are of utmost important to Bramptonians.
Well, thank you very much, MPP Amarjot Sandhu of Brampton West, and thank you, Minister Steve Clark, Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs. Just before we let everyone go, I want to remind you that the annual general meeting of the Brampton Board of Trade is happening virtually again this year on the 17th of November. Should be an inspiring event where we'll reflect on 2021 and share some plans that we have ahead for 2022. We welcome all of our new and returning board of directors and look forward to working together and continuing to bring some positive productivity and prosperity to Brampton in the coming weeks and months. On December 3rd, we're hosting a webinar on Future Ready Brampton. We'll be inviting Michelle McCollum, the current chair of the Brampton Board of Trade, and volunteers Glenn Williams and Chris Drew to discuss important topics, including LRT, transit, Go, 2A All Day Go, housing development growth, etc. We look forward to seeing you at these upcoming Board of Trade events. Don't feel that you have to rush away. If you'd like to do some more one-on-one networking, again, the networking icon is to the left of your screen. We also have the expo. There's some really good information there about upcoming events, about services like the Chamber Group Health Insurance Plan. That is really helpful to a lot of small businesses. So please feel free to stay and meet some people. And again, thank you, Minister Clark. Thank you, Mr. Sandhu. We look forward to seeing you again at another Brampton Board of Trade event sometime in the near future. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.